I feel like talking about the reason that I think my perspective in life is more accurate, you could say, more complete, inclusive than others. Um, because a big part of me is highly skeptical, not in the sense of closed-mindedness, but in the sense of hating to be biased, to be identified and blinded by something, just for the sake of having my identity together. And I've um, I've been this way for as far as I can remember. It started out first when I was a Muslim, and I, of course, by default, I fell into the trap of being blinded, like anyone else. Although, at the beginning, the very beginning, when I was a child that barely was able to speak and talk, I did question and wonder about the nature of the things that were taught to me by my parents and the people that surrounded me. Um, but of course, you know, um, you can only go so far with the questioning before they use guilt and fear to numb your mind, your default state of being a true scientist and a philosopher, which of course um, I'm not blaming them for. And when I say them, I mean my parents and whoever else had an impact on my early life. Um, they gave me what they thought is best. So whether I thought of it as not good enough or not, it's not really their fault. It's no one's fault, really. Um, but eventually I started going with the flow kind of thing, um, practicing what they taught me is right, and by all means, it was working really, really well. And for a moment, at that point in time, I thought that I had a very self-destructive nature, aside from smoking, classical psychology, self-destructive. Um, but also because it was just fine, and or at least it seemed to be. I was practicing the religion, doing the prayers, reading the Quran. I was feeling quite uplifted, quite peaceful. I remember every night before I used to go to sleep, I made sure that I did all what I had to do when it comes to prayers and whatnot, just in case if I didn't make it to the next day, that I'm ready to go. Um, I remember even it's such a weird wish, but at that point, even though I was pretty happy, I remember wishing to die a lot of times, and not in a depressive way, but more of exciting way, in a very odd manner. I hoped to die every single night before I went to sleep when I had done everything right as much as I could. And I thought to myself, just as I was talking to Allah, just please take me before I fuck up the next day. I can't be sure that I will do good the next day. And I did good today, so please just end it here. And all of that was, of course, because I was very terrified of doing bad things, and I was afraid of upsetting Allah and going to hell. Um, but at some point, I had a very suspicious feeling that does not make much sense. It doesn't to a certain degree, but generally speaking, it did not make any sense to me at that point, which is that I found myself questioning if what I'm doing is right. The thing is about any living thing, they don't seek change unless the current situation is no longer desirable and no longer bringing any comfort. And this is another way for survival to manifest. Survival isn't necessarily just as long as I'm not bleeding, I'm good, you know. Survival goes to a mental level, goes to emotional level, spiritual level. And mostly, like, I'm gonna stick to humans to make it more relatable. I don't know to whom exactly, because I'm not really trying to publish any of these videos or to promote them. Uh, I just post them. But to keep it relatable, I'm gonna stick to human beings, and human beings are very self-centered beings or creatures. Um, as long as whatever is going on is good for them, subjectively speaking, that's it. They're good. Nothing to change. And you can see it in the day-to-day lives, right? For example, I'm gonna stay in my room as long as I want, but there's only so long that I can stay here before desiring to go somewhere else. And I don't even mean somewhere else in the sense of like going outside or traveling some other country. Of course that, but even something as simple as going to the bathroom. I'm not gonna go to the bathroom until, to be more accurate, the current situation in the room is no longer desirable and needed. It's causing me discomfort. I really need to go to the bathroom. So then I will change. I will make some changes, and I will change where I am to the bathroom. And I'm gonna sit there, gonna do whatever. But there's only so much that I'm gonna stay in the bathroom before again I desire change. And that's when I'm gonna go to the kitchen to get something to eat, or at least back to my room once again. There isn't that much to do in the bathroom anyway, so at some point I will get tired and I will feel some discomfort, and therefore I will desire change. So normally for human beings is that if nothing forced them, they will not change anything. Because why would they? Like, if you're absolutely blissful, why would you change anything? Uh, And this is why I don't understand what got me to question my religion. Um, this is why I didn't understand back then why I started questioning my religion, even though I was very happy with it. I was feeling very peaceful and I was ready to go every night. But now that I look back, I can see why. And according to my memories, as far as I can remember, and my parents' testimonials, that I've always been a pain in the ass when it comes to being around or being in somebody's company, that I just ask a lot of questions. And I suppose you could say that it is in my blood to be a philosopher, and I'm not a big fan of that statement, to be honest, because I believe that anyone, at least um, by the default nature or setting, once they're born as a philosopher, as a scientist. You tell the kid, don't put your finger in the fire, and as soon as you turn your, I don't know, turn around, turn your back on them, they do that. Don't tell me what to do and what not to do. I want to know for myself. I want to experiment. I want to think. I want to figure things out for myself. I don't want to just go blindly around. And but the reason that in my case it's you could say a bit different is because for most people they are born in that way, but then these default attributes are kind of like shut off or numbed out as they move on with their lives, and they just forget about them, and they just live. But for me, and of course some other people, to different extents, um, these questions never really stop. They never really get numbed out. Um, you might succeed. My parents thought they did, of silencing my mind, but not for long. And again, it came back, and it came back in a way that did not make much sense. And it's that I was good, and I started questioning. I remember even after I came out of the closet and confronted my parents about me having doubts and whatnot, they were very confused about that. They were like, "What is wrong with you?" And at first, I was like hurt by the question of like feeling like there's something flawed within me. But then I thought about it, and I was like, they, it makes sense for them to see that there is something wrong because it goes against the common nature of human beings. If you're good, why are you trying to change anything? Why are you complicating things, as they used to say? Why are you looking too much into it? It's not that deep, bro. If I had a dollar for every single time I heard that sentence. But I just couldn't help it, and I was feeling very sorry and afraid from Allah because I was questioning His words, His book, His religion, and all that. But it was a very simple thought that just triggered everything, and it was this this ability to snap out of one's own bubble, and it's not that hard. Yet a lot of people are not capable of recognizing that they are in a bubble to begin with. But once you actually become aware that you are in one, and it is in your nature to seek for truth, it becomes really easy to snap out of it, at least for a moment. And that's what happened with me. I was very happy, but I was having the constant awareness that I'm locked up in a bubble, and that bubble is just giving me everything that I want to hear, not need to hear, the things that I want to hear. Uh, a confirmation bias kind of bubble. And I remember at some point I just found myself too aware of the bubble that I just couldn't help but think, if like if my religion is not real, I shouldn't be able to feel all of the amazing spiritual, blissful, beautiful stuff that I used to feel when I pray. And this was some sort of like a validation to the accuracy or the truth of the religion, that it works. Um, but this is exactly the problem with, for example, the mainstream science. That I don't feel like it's really about most of the scientists nowadays, at least. I don't feel like they're about knowing the truth, but they're more about science, as in technology, um, how to manipulate reality, the universe, life, for ourselves, how to benefit from everything around it, make use of it. Sorry, but and I'm not. I don't by any means mean that technology that it's bad, because I would be such a hypocrite uh, if I said so, and I'm literally doing that right now. I'm using technology thanks to all of these people who try to manipulate reality and so forth. So it's not that science, when it comes to technology, is bad, but um, it's there is this mindset that because we can create technology through this and enhance the quality of our lives, therefore science must be the absolute truth. And so the same with religions. Um, and that's what I noticed that night, is that I was validating the truth of my religion because it works. And when I say it works, is that it feels good to me. Um, so as long as it feels good here, then it's real. And of course, there's truth in that. To what feels right is definitely the thing that you should go with the most. Um, but I want it to go beyond that. I want it to look outside my own bubble. And in that day, I remember snapping out of it just for a moment, which was very terrifying to do because it felt like a sin. But I did it anyway. And that's when I noticed, uh, because when you leave your own bubble, you pretty much have no biases at all, and your clarity of perception is quite high, that you're very sincere when you contemplate things and observe things. You're not taking any sides. And this is why I was very capable of seeing through all the people that I know that follow different religions, the Christians and the Jews and the Buddhists and whatnot, and and it was very obvious to me that they feel the same beautiful, spiritual, peaceful connections and emotions that I feel when I pray, when I read the Quran, when I go to the mosque or Mecca. Um, it it was very shocking, and now it seems very obvious, but back then it was very shocking. And I remember thinking, and I was like, if my religion is true, then how come all the other religions are also true? I thought there should be just one real religion that everyone should follow, because this is the words, the real words of God, and the real rules and teachings that must be followed. Uh, it was utterly humbling to recognize that I am no different than a Christian, than a Jew, than a Hindu, than a Buddhist, a Taoist. We all are following what felt right, what we were taught, and it works for each one of us, even though that the belief system, the structure of it can be radically different. And from that day on, I couldn't let myself subscribe or follow any philosophy or religion. Uh, but here's the thing. After all of that, being a Muslim and then an agnostic and then an atheist, then a spiritual, uh, there's there is something really interesting that I came to recognize about myself, unintentionally. I um, I remember talking with a random person on the internet, and that person asked me a question that showed me a lot. Uh, and that person asked me, what kind of worldview do I have? And it puzzled me for a moment, because I thought about it. I wanted to answer them, but I couldn't, because I realized that I have so many worldviews, and that what these eyes see and what that mouth can say, if you listened carefully and honestly, you will come to find truth in every religion or philosophy in it. That is to say, when I speak with a Muslim, I remember talking to a very, very religious Muslim a few years back, and he was trying to understand my perspective, but really he was just listening so that he corrects me and tells me like, okay, Islam is the real deal. But what happened, and that he didn't expect, and I didn't expect either, is that when I spoke for a bit, he was like, how are you not a Muslim? You are more of a Muslim than any Muslim that I've ever met. And I'm never gonna forget that day, because it hit me so much. I was like, I did leave Islam, but what I'm saying is so common with Islam. I was like, is it perhaps because I'm still biased towards the religion? And that concerned me a lot, because you could say I have some sort of like an allergy towards being biased. But a few days after that, I was interacting with a Christian, and she also told me pretty much the same comment, that a lot of what I say is said in the Bible. And then that's when I started looking into other religions, and I kept being fascinated by, because when you're someone who's not taking any sides, and the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, all three of them are the same to you. Not No one of them feels more accurate or more real, more true than the other. You're not biased towards any of them, and then you have a genuine interest and an honest approach for truth, for more fundamental, deeper truths. You're gonna look and read in each one of them, and you're gonna come to see these patterns. Yes, the religions can be radically different from one another, yet there are some patterns, some teachings that just repeat themselves over and over and over again across all religions, and not just those three. And that happened to interest me quite a lot. Um, but at some point, I realized that the patterns is not just in religions. It's also in science. It's You can even find it in atheism, like in the atheistic mindset and the agnostic mindset. They have a lot of similarities that they just seem to not notice, and they focus on their differences. And and it makes sense to focus on the differences, because it's the whole notion that us versus them, right versus wrong, good and bad, the dualistic perspective, which gives birth to biases and whatnot. Uh, but there's something about patterns that I just can't overlook, and it's not in the sense of like looking for patterns in an obsessive kind of way, where you go crazy and you're trying to make things fit into the picture that you've been drawing for so long, and it's too late to start from scratch. That's not what I mean by that. Um, but There's something, a phenomena in mathematics that seem to be really relevant to what I'm talking about. And it goes like this. If if I have a jar of marbles and that had a known amount or number of marbles, and I were to just go to you and be like, take a quick random guess uh, to how many marbles do you think are in the jar, and then whatever number you're gonna say, I'll take it, and then I'll go to a different person, and I will ask the other person the same question, and then they would give another number, and so on to the third and to the fourth, for example. And then if you were to look at each of the numbers, you would feel like, compared to the actual amount of marbles, the guesses separately, individualistically, are usually way lower than the actual number or way higher than the actual number. But something really interesting happens when you add up all the guesses and divide them by the amount of participants, basically calculating the average. So it's merging all of these guesses together and then coming up with a new number out of all of them. And then they seem to find that the resulting new number is usually quite close to the actual number of the marbles. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Is that if you were to be limited to a specific bubble or worldview, perspective, there is truth in that. Because say that the actual numbers of the marbles is 500, and then I came in and said, I guess 50. It seems like, oh, this is very far off from the actual number, but yet again, it still is a number, and the 50 is still included within the 500. So it's not that very far-fetched, or that it's not like falsehood. That there is no such thing as falsehood. It's just bigger and bigger and more accurate truths, which is in essence is science, like the honest science. Science is not about certainty, it's just about becoming more and more accurate, closer and closer to the truth. So, a Muslim, in their perspective of the world and life and what's going on, there's truth in that. And but so is the Christian, so is the Jew, and the Buddhist. Uh, it's just something that I cannot just get enough of. Just watching how every book has a lot of truth to life, and every perspective is real. You see, at the very beginning, I thought to myself, like, if my religion is true, then how come all religions are true? Then that means that none of them is true. Not quite. It's kind of the opposite. Is that they can all be true simultaneously, without having to have one of them is just right. Like you can think of it as like branches to science, biology, physics, whatnot. They can be, the studies in themselves can be extremely radical from one another, but there are some fundamental um, patterns and structures and truths that are shared across all fields of science. And this is what I like to focus on. And this is, in my personal opinion, is the truth.